The warning lights flashed red across the bridge of the exploration vessel New Horizon as Captain Kim Dae stared at the impossible readings on his screen. Something large and metallic was moving near Jupiter's orbit, and it definitely was not human-made. "Captain, the object is scanning us," reported Lieutenant Park Min from the science station. Her fingers danced across the control panel as she tried to understand what they were seeing. "The energy patterns are unlike anything in our database." Kim Dae had commanded deep space missions for 12 years, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. Earth had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Today, they got their answer. "Open all communication channels," he ordered. "If someone is out there, we need to talk to them." The response came faster than expected. Mathematical sequences began appearing on their screens, simple at first, then growing more complex. The patterns were clearly intelligent, clearly deliberate. "They are using prime numbers," Parkman said, her voice filled with excitement. "Basic mathematics, then moving to more advanced concepts. This is a first contact protocol." Kim Dae felt his heart racing. This was the moment that would change everything for humanity. "Can you respond?" "Already working on it, Captain." Several thousand kilometers away, inside the alien probe. Ambassador Kira of the Velethari species watched her screens with growing interest. Ding. The third planet in this system showed signs of intelligent life, but initial scans suggested they were still primitive. Spaceflight was limited to their immediate solar system. Their technology basic compared to galactic standards. Yet these beings had responded to the mathematical communication with surprising speed and accuracy. It's more interesting, they had improved upon the sequences, suggesting more efficient calculations. "Fascinating," Kira murmured in her native tongue. Her forearms moved gracefully across the control surfaces as she prepared the next phase of contact protocols. They learned quickly. The Veltari had been members of the Galactic Council for over 3,000 years. They had made first contact with 47 different species during that time. The pattern was always the same: fear, confusion, then either worship or hostility. Sometimes both. These humans seemed different. On the New Horizon, Parkman had been working for 6 hours straight, her coffee cup long, empty. She had managed to decode the alien mathematical language and was now attempting something that would have seemed impossible that morning. She was having a conversation with an alien intelligence. "Captain, I think they're trying to share star charts," she said, pointing to the latest transmission. "These symbols here represent stellar coordinates. They are showing us the locations of other star systems." Kim Dae leaned over her shoulder to look at the data. "Can you understand it?" "Some of it. But Captain, look at this." Parkman highlighted a section of the transmission. "They are not just sharing information. They are asking for ours. They want to know about our star charts, our navigation methods." This was not what the textbooks had predicted. First contact scenarios always assumed that aliens would be either far more advanced or far more primitive than humans. The idea that they might be interested in human knowledge had never been seriously considered. "Send them our basic navigation data," Kim Dae decided. "Nothing classified, just the basics." Parkman hesitated. "Captain, are you sure? We do not know anything about their intentions. If they wanted to harm us, they would have done it already. Their technology is clearly superior to ours. The fact that they are trying to communicate suggests they are peaceful." The data transfer took 3 hours. During that time, more alien probes appeared in the outer system, but they maintained their distance. Whatever these aliens were, they understood the concept of not appearing threatening. Dr. Li Na arrived on the bridge during the data exchange. As Earth's leading xenobiologist, she had been called in to help analyze the situation. Her expertise in studying life in extreme environments made her the closest thing humanity had to an alien expert. Have we learned anything about their biology? She asked, settling into an empty chair. Not much, Parkman admitted. But their communication patterns suggest they think in ways similar to us. Logical, mathematical, but with creative elements. They are not just following a script. Dr. Lina studied the transmissions for several minutes. It's remarkable, okay? They are not just sharing data. They are teaching us. Look at this sequence here, okay? They are showing us how to calculate more efficient hyperspace jumps. Kim Day frowned. Hyperspace jumps. We do not have that technology. No, but they are giving us the mathematical foundation for it. They are sharing advanced physics concepts as if they expect us to understand them. The implications were staggering. Most first contact scenarios assumed that advanced aliens would either ignore primitive species or slowly guide them through technological development over centuries. These aliens seem to be treating humans as equals, or at least as beings capable of rapid learning. The breakthrough came when Parkman successfully decoded what appeared to be a greeting message. The translation was rough, but the meaning was clear. We are the Velthari. We represent the Galactic Council. We seek peaceful contact with your species. Galactic Council, Kim Day repeated. That suggests there are many alien species working together. Captain, there is more, Parkman said. They are inviting us to send a representative to meet with them. They want to establish formal diplomatic relations. Dr. Lina looked up from her analysis. This is unprecedented. Usually, first contact involves years of careful observation and slow introduction. They are moving directly to diplomacy. Maybe they see something in us that we do not see in ourselves. Kim Day suggested. The truth was more complex than any of them realized. Ambassador Kira had been observing human behavior for the past several hours, and what she saw challenged everything the Galactic Council thought they knew about primitive species. Humans did not respond to superior technology with fear or worship. They responded with curiosity and an immediate desire to learn. When presented with advanced mathematical concepts, they did not simply copy them. They analyzed them, understood them, and then suggested improvements. Most remarkable of all, they had responded to the offer of contact with enthusiasm rather than suspicion. In Kira's experience, species that had recently achieved spaceflight were usually paranoid and defensive. These humans seemed genuinely excited about the possibility of joining a larger galactic community. Prepare the formal greeting protocols. Kira instructed her crew and sent a message to the council. We may have found something special here. The New Horizon prepared to make humanity's first official contact with alien intelligence. None of them realized that this moment would reshape the entire galaxy. The Galactic Council was about to discover that humans made both the most loyal allies and the most dangerous enemies they had ever encountered. The universe was about to change, and it would never be the same again. 3 months after first contact, Commander Troy Jin found himself standing in the council chambers on the massive space station called Unity Point. The crystalline walls stretched high above him, and beings from 12 different worlds sat in a circle around the central speaking area. Jin had been chosen to represent humanity, what the council called a proving test. Every new species had to complete a simple task before being accepted as junior members. The task seemed easy enough. Solve a trade dispute between 2 client species. The Crash and the Nethmar had been fighting over mining rights in the Kepler system for 6 months, explained Council Speaker Velman, a tall being with blue skin and silver eyes. Your job is to find a solution that both sides can accept. Jin nodded, though inside he felt nervous. The council members were watching him carefully. He could sense that this was about more than just solving a trade dispute. They were testing humanity itself. I will need to visit both species and understand their positions, Jen said. Of course, Velman replied. You have 30 days to reach a solution. As Jen left the chamber, He noticed one council member watching him with particular interest. This was Zextic, a member of the warrior species called the Verdun. His red eyes seemed to follow Jin's every movement. The flight to the Kresh homeworld took 2 days. Jin spent the time studying everything he could about both species. The Kresh were insect-like beings who lived in large underground colonies. They were excellent miners and had very long lifespans, but they reproduced slowly. Each Kresh lived for nearly 1,000 years, but their colonies only produced a few dozen new members each century. The Nethmir were completely different. They were aquatic beings who looked like large dolphins with hands. They could survive on land for short periods, but needed special suits filled with water. They were skilled underwater miners and could reach mineral deposits that other species could not access. The dispute was over a water-rich asteroid in the Kepler system. Both species wanted to mine it, but for different reasons. The Kresh claimed they had discovered it first. The Nethmar argued they needed the rare minerals to build life support systems for their colonies on dry worlds. When Jin arrived at the Kresh homeworld, he was taken deep underground to meet Queen Clix, the ruler of the largest colony. The tunnels were dark and narrow, designed for beings much smaller than humans. "Human diplomat," Queen Clix said, her voice making clicking sounds. "You are here to force us to give up our claim." "I am here to listen," Jin replied. "Tell me about your needs." For the next 3 days, Jin lived with the Kresh. He learned about their culture, their fears, and their hopes. The Kresh were afraid of extinction. Their slow reproduction meant that losing even a few members was a disaster. They needed the minerals from the asteroid to build better protective equipment for their miners. "Every year, we lose young ones in mining accidents," explained Worker Klen, a Kresh who had become Jin's guide. "The rare minerals can make our equipment stronger. Fewer deaths means our species survives." Jin understood their fear. The Kresh were not being greedy. They were fighting for survival. The trip to the Nethmar homeworld was completely different. Their planet was mostly ocean, with floating cities on the surface. Jin had to wear a special breathing apparatus to visit their underwater colonies. Prime swimmer Nalak met him at the deepest colony, nearly a mile below the surface. The Nethmar cities were beautiful, with living coral walls and bioluminescent lights. "Krish, do not understand our situation," Nalak H said, her voice musical even through the translator. "We have colonies on 15 dry worlds. Without the rare minerals, we cannot maintain life support for our people there." Jin spent 4 days with the Nethmar, learning about their expanding civilization. They were explorers by nature, always seeking new worlds to colonize. But their biology meant they could only survive on dry worlds with advanced technology. "We are not trying to hurt the Kresh," explained Engineer Talmar, showing Jin through their life support facilities. "But our colonies will die without these minerals. Thousands of our people depend on us." Jin realized that both species were telling the truth. Both had genuine needs. Both were facing potential disasters if they could not access the asteroid's resources. Traditional council wisdom would have divided the asteroid between them or given it to whoever had the stronger claim. But Jin could see that neither solution would work. Splitting the asteroid would give each species too little to solve their problems. Choosing one over the other would doom the losing side. On the flight back to Unity Point, Jin had an idea. Instead of thinking about the asteroid as something to be divided, what if it could be something that brought both species together? Requested a meeting with representatives from both species. Queen Clix and Prime Swimmer Nalak H agreed to meet at a neutral station. "I have studied both of your situations," Jin began. "The Kresh need safer mining equipment. The Nethmar need minerals for life support systems. But you both have something the other needs." He activated a holographic display showing the asteroid. "The Kresh are the best miners in the galaxy for solid rock. Okay? The Nethmer are the only ones who can mine the underwater deposits on this asteroid. Working separately, each of you can only access part of the resources. Queen Clix's antennae twitched with interest. Continue. What if you worked together? Quish could provide security and long-term planning. Okay? Your people live for centuries, so you understand long-term projects. The Nethmer could handle the underwater mining that the Kresh cannot do safely. Prime Swimmer Nalik made a sound that the translator rendered as thoughtful humming. A partnership. More than that, Jin continued. The Kresh could share their advanced mining safety technology. The Nethmer could share their underwater mining techniques. Both species would benefit from the other's expertise. The negotiations took another week. There were cultural differences to overcome and technical details to work out. Slowly, the two species began to see the advantages of cooperation. The final agreement created the first interspecies mining consortium in galactic history. The Crash would provide security, equipment, and long-term planning. The Nethmer would handle underwater operations and provide their advanced life support technology. Profits would be shared based on contribution rather than ownership. When Jin presented the agreement to the council, there was stunned silence. Council Speaker Velman read through the document twice before speaking. "This is not what we expected," he said finally. "But it works," Jin replied. "Both species get what they need. More importantly, they now have a relationship that will benefit them for generations." The success of the Krush-Nethmar partnership sent ripples through the galactic community. Other species began requesting human mediation for their disputes. The council had created their first human diplomat. But they had also created something they had not expected, a new way of thinking about cooperation in the council chambers. Sex watched the proceedings with growing concern. Of the humans were changing things too quickly, too dramatically. The old ways had kept the galaxy stable for thousands of years. He began to wonder if humanity was a blessing or a threat to the galactic order. Dr. Yoon Hei stared at the microscopic images on her screen and felt her heart sink. The plague spreading through Corvin space was unlike anything she had seen before. The proud warrior species was dying, and their own honor code was preventing them from asking for help. "The cellular destruction is systematic," she explained to the emergency council meeting. "Without intervention, the Corvin civilization will collapse within 6 months. Council Speaker Velman looked troubled. The Corvin have refused all offers of assistance. Their warrior culture sees accepting help as weakness. Our protocols require their consent before we can act. Then we will all watch them die because of paperwork," said Captain Han Sol, who had been called in to assess the military situation. His voice carried the frustration that many humans felt with council bureaucracy. The Corvin were a species of large, reptilian beings who valued strength and honor above all else. They had been council members for over 2,000 years, serving as elite warriors and peacekeepers. But their culture had a fatal flaw. They could not ask for help, even when facing extinction. "The plague started in their mining colonies," Dr. Yoon Hei continued. "It spreads through their breathing system. By the time symptoms appear, it is too late to treat. Traditional council medical protocols would take months to implement, and we would need Corvan cooperation at every step." Engineer Limbo, who had been studying the technical challenges, spoke up. "What if we do not ask for permission? What if we just help them?" The council chamber fell silent. The idea of violating established protocols was shocking to most members. "That would be against everything we stand for," said Councilmember Taraxis. "Of the healer species, we cannot force help on those who refuse it, even if refusing means they all die," asked Captain Han Sol. This was the kind of moral dilemma that humans seemed to face differently than other species, where the council saw rules and procedures. Humans saw suffering beings who needed help. Dr. Yoon Hei had been working with the council medical corps for 3 months. She had learned to appreciate their careful, methodical approach to problems. But she had also seen how slowly they moved when speed was essential. "I have an idea," she said. "What if we do not offer help directly? What if we simply establish a medical station near their space and make it known that treatment is available for anyone who wants it?" "The Corvan would never come to us," Taraxis replied. "Their pride would not allow it." "Then we bring the treatment to them," Captain Han Sol said. "Mobile medical units. We do not ask permission. Just show up and start treating the sick." The debate that followed lasted for hours. Traditional council members argued that such action would violate the fundamental principle of species autonomy. The newer members, particularly those who had been helped by human mediation, argued that letting an entire species die was a greater violation of council values. Finally, Council Speaker Vilman called for a vote. The result was closer than anyone expected. 7 members supported the traditional approach. 5 supported the human proposal. "The motion fails," Velman announced. "We will continue to offer assistance through diplomatic channels." But Captain Han Sol was not finished. "What if this is not an official council operation? What if a group of individuals volunteered to help?" "You mean act without council authority?" asked Terexis. "I mean act as concerned beings who cannot stand by and watch genocide." Han Sol replied. Dr. Yoon Hey felt her pulse quicken. This was dangerous territory. Acting without council approval could result in expulsion from the galactic community. But doing nothing would mean watching an entire species die. "I volunteer," she said quietly. "As do I," said Engineer Lin Bo. Within hours, a volunteer mission was organized. It included Dr. Yoon Hae, Captain Han Sol, Engineer Lin Bo, and surprisingly, Nurse Kim So, who had joined the Council Medical Corps just weeks earlier. They also received unexpected support from members of other species. 3 Nethmer engineers volunteered their underwater mining expertise. 2 Kresh offered their advanced protective equipment. Even a Velteri cultural specialist joined the mission. The volunteer fleet consisted of 3 small medical ships and a mobile hospital unit. They crossed into Corvan space without permission, knowing that they might be fired upon by the very people they were trying to help. The first Corvan patrol they encountered reacted exactly as expected. Battle Commander Korthok ordered them to leave immediately. "We are not here to invade," Captain Han Sol responded. "We are here to help your people survive." "We do not need help from weak species," Korthok replied. "Leave or be destroyed." But Dr. Yoon Hae had prepared for this response. She transmitted detailed medical scans showing the plague's progress through Corvan colonies. The data was undeniable. Without treatment, the entire species would be extinct within months. "Your choice, Commander," she said. "You can destroy us, or you can let us try to save your people." The Corvan patrol ships held their position for long minutes. Then, without explanation, they withdrew. The volunteer mission established their mobile medical station on the edge of Corvan space. They broadcast their location and made it clear that treatment was available for anyone who wanted it for 3 days. No one came. Then, on the 4th day, a single Corvan transport ship arrived. It carried a dozen sick warriors who had been secretly transported by their families. The Corvan had found a way to accept help without officially asking for it. Dr. Yoon Hae and her team worked around the clock to treat the first patients. The plague was more complex than they had initially thought. It required a combination of different medical approaches, each tailored to Corvan biology. The breakthrough came when Nurse Kim So noticed something unusual. The plague seemed to respond to certain traditional Corvan medicines, but only when combined with human antibiotics. Neither treatment worked alone, but together they could halt the disease's progress. "This is impossible," said Dr. Yoon Hae, studying the test results. "How did you think to try this combination?" K. Watch the Corvin patients, Kim Sol replied. They were taking their own medicines alongside ours. I thought maybe there was a connection. Discovery led to the first interspecies medical collaboration in galactic history. Human doctors worked with Corvan healers to perfect the treatment. Nethmer engineers designed water-based delivery systems. Quesh provided advanced protective equipment for the medical teams. Within weeks, the mobile medical station had treated thousands of Corvan patients. The plague was contained, then eliminated entirely. But the real victory was cultural. The Corvan had learned that accepting help was not weakness, but wisdom. The humans had learned that sometimes rules must be broken to serve a higher purpose. Most importantly, the galaxy had learned that humans would risk everything to help others, even when those others could not ask for help themselves. The success of the Corvine mission created a new problem for the Council. Dozens of species began requesting human intervention in their most difficult problems. Humans were no longer seen as junior members of the galactic community. They were seen as miracle workers. This reputation would soon be tested in ways none of them could imagine. General O.T. stood on the bridge of the rebel ship Dawn's Edge and watched the Council fleet approach his position. 6 months ago, he had been a loyal servant of the galactic community. Today, he was leading the largest rebellion in Council history. The transformation had begun when O.T. discovered the truth about the Proxima colony. The Council had not chosen that dangerous world by accident. They had deliberately placed 15,000 human colonists in a system with unstable stars, toxic storms, and hostile wildlife. It was a test, they said. A way to measure human adaptability. 3,000 colonists had died in the first year alone. General, the Council fleet is demanding our surrender, reported Lieutenant Kwandu from the communications station. Let them demand, Ote replied. We have demands of our own. The rebellion had started small, a few colonists refusing to follow Council orders. When Ote began investigating, he found something that shocked him to his core. The Council had been conducting similar experiments on dozens of species for thousands of years. They called it guided evolution. The evidence was hidden in classified files that human computer specialist Park Yoon had managed to hack. Cohorts of species forced into dangerous situations to test their limits. Civilizations manipulated into wars to see how they would respond. Entire worlds abandoned when their inhabitants failed to meet Council expectations. Colonel Baymin is requesting permission to come aboard. Lieutenant Kwandu announced. Ote's expression hardened. Colonel Baymin had been his friend for 20 years. They had served together in the human Space Force, had shared countless meals and conversations. But when the rebellion began, Baymin had chosen to stay loyal to the Council. Permission granted, Ote said, but keep weapons ready. Colonel Baymin arrived on the Dawn's Edge with a small escort. She wore the blue uniform of the Council peacekeeping force, but her face showed the strain of the past months. The rebellion had torn the human community apart, dividing families and breaking friendships. This has to stop, she said, as soon as she stepped onto the bridge. The Council is prepared to make concessions. They will relocate the Proxima colonist to a safer world. And what about the other species they have been experimenting on? Ote asked. What about the Kaleri, who were pushed into civil war to test their military capabilities? What about the Zor, who were infected with the plague, to see how they would respond? Baymin's eyes widened. Those are serious accusations. Do you have proof? In response, Tay activated a holographic display that filled the bridge. Thousands of documents appeared, showing decades of Council manipulation. Species used as test subjects. Worlds abandoned when their inhabitants proved unsuitable. Entire civilizations destroyed in the name of galactic stability. This is what we are fighting against, Ote said. Not just the treatment of humans, but the systematic abuse of every species in the galaxy. Min studied the documents for long minutes. Her face grew pale as she read report after report of council experiments. Even if this is true, rebellion is not the answer. It's work within the system, file complaints, use diplomatic channels. We tried that, OT replied. The council dismissed our concerns. They said we were too new to understand galactic politics. They told us to trust their wisdom. The conversation was interrupted by an urgent message from the communications station. General, we are receiving transmissions from across the galaxy. Other species are responding to our broadcasts. Ote had been transmitting the classified documents to every corner of the galaxy. The response was explosive. Species that had suffered under council manipulation for centuries suddenly had proof of what they had long suspected. Sir, the Kalari government has announced they are withdrawing from the council, reported Lieutenant Kwandu. The Zor have declared their independence. 3 other species have demanded investigations into council activities. Men looked stunned. You are tearing apart the galactic community. We are exposing the truth, Ote corrected. The galactic community was built on lies and manipulation. It deserves to fall. The rebellion had started with military tactics that the council had never encountered. Human guerrilla warfare confused their traditional response patterns. Psychological operations turned their own propaganda against them. The real damage came from the information war. Humans had proven to be natural investigators. They questioned everything, followed every lead, and refused to accept convenient explanations. When they turned these skills against the council, the results were devastating. The council is preparing a massive military response, Baymen warned. They have authorization to use whatever force is necessary to end this rebellion. Dende will be destroying the very people they claim to protect, Ote said. Every species that has joined our cause, every world that has demanded freedom from council manipulation. The rebellion had grown beyond anything Ote had imagined. What started as a human protest had become a galactic movement. A species that had been enemies for centuries were now working together against their common oppressor. But the cost was enormous. The galaxy was dividing into 2 camps, those who supported the council and those who demanded change. Trade routes were disrupted. Communication networks were compromised. Some regions were approaching open warfare. There has to be another way, Baymen pleaded. It's a path that does not lead to galactic civil war. Ote wanted to believe her, but he had seen too much evidence of council corruption. He had watched too many species suffer under their rule. The time for compromise had passed. The council had thousands of years to do the right thing, he said. They chose manipulation and control instead. Now they must face the consequences. The meeting ended without agreement. Baymen returned to her ship, carrying with her the terrible knowledge of what the council had done. Ote watched her go and felt the weight of his decisions. Meanwhile, on the council station Unity Point, emergency sessions were being held around the clock. The rebellion had spread far beyond their worst fears. Nearly half the galaxy was now in open revolt. We must respond with overwhelming force, demanded Sextic of the Vorden. Crush this rebellion before it spreads further. Violence will only prove the rebels right, argued Council Speaker Velman. We need to find a peaceful solution. The humans have made peace impossible, Sexstock replied. They have turned the galaxy against us with their lies and propaganda. But they were not lies, and everyone in the chamber knew it. The classified documents were genuine. The evidence of council manipulation was undeniable. The carefully constructed image of benevolent galactic leadership was crumbling. Ambassador Seo Yun, who had been working desperately to find a peaceful solution, spoke up. We still have options. Negotiations are possible. Many species would accept reforms rather than complete revolution. Reforms. Sexstock laughed bitterly. The rebels are not interested in reforms. They want to destroy everything we have built. The debate continued for hours, but no solution emerged. The council was trapped between admitting their mistakes and facing the consequences of their actions. Either choice would fundamentally change the galactic order. In the end, the decision was made for them. The rebellion was too widespread to contain. The evidence of council corruption was too damaging to ignore. The galaxy was heading toward a confrontation that would determine the future of every species in it. And at the center of it all were the humans, proving once again that they could be both the most loyal allies and the most dangerous enemies the galaxy had ever known. President Anki walked into the emergency assembly chamber, knowing that the next hour would determine the future of the galaxy. Representatives from 47 species filled the massive hall, their voices creating a chaos of different languages and emotions. The galactic community was falling apart. "Order, please order," called Ambassador SCO Yun, who had been chosen to moderate the historic session. 6 months of rebellion had brought them to this moment. Either find a solution that everyone could accept, or watch the galaxy tear itself apart in civil war. The chamber fell silent as President Anki approached the central speaking platform. He carried with him a proposal that would have seemed impossible just a year ago. Today, it might be the only thing that could save galactic civilization. "We stand at a crossroads," Anki began, his voice carrying clearly through the translation. "Systems. We can continue fighting over the mistakes of the past, or we can build something better for the future." In the observer section, General Ote sat with other rebellion leaders. His forces still controlled nearly half the galaxy, but the cost of the fighting was becoming unbearable. Entire star systems had been cut off from trade. Millions of beings were suffering from the economic collapse. Across the chamber, Council Speaker Velman and the remaining loyal council members waited to hear the human proposal. The old council was finished. Everyone knew that. The question was what would replace it. "I propose that we dissolve the current Galactic Council," Anki continued. "In its place, we will create a new Galactic Assembly with equal representation for all species." Murmurs filled the chamber. This was more radical than many had expected. "The new system will have 3 fundamental principles," Anki explained. "First, transparency. All decisions will be made in open sessions. All documents will be available to member species. No more secret experiments or hidden agendas." Zixthuk of the Verdun stood up angrily. "This is madness. Some information must remain classified for security reasons." "Security," said General OT, rising to respond. "T was the excuse used to hide decades of abuse. True security comes from trust between species, not from secrets and manipulation." The debate that followed was intense. Traditional Council supporters argued that complete transparency would make effective governance impossible. Rebellion supporters insisted that secrecy had corrupted the entire system. Second principle, Anki continued when order was restored. Term limits. No species or individual will hold power indefinitely. Leadership positions will rotate regularly to prevent the concentration of authority. This caused even more discussion. The Velfari had led the council for 3,000 years. The idea of giving up their leadership role was difficult to accept. "Change is necessary," said Dr. Yoon Hae, who had become a respected voice in galactic politics. "The Corvian crisis taught us that fresh perspectives solve problems better than old habits." Third principle, Anki said. Checks and balances. No single group will have the power to make decisions that affect other species without their consent. Every major action will require approval from multiple governing bodies. The proposal included detailed plans for the new government structure. A rotating council would handle day-to-day administration. Species assembly would vote on major policies. An independent court system would resolve disputes and ensure that laws were followed fairly. Most importantly, it would be a human mediation corps with the authority to investigate complaints and intervene when species were being treated unfairly. You were giving humans too much power, objected Taraxis of the healer species. What makes them qualified to judge other species? It's their track record, replied Prime Swimmer Nalik Age of the Nethmer. Humans saved my people's colonies. They created the partnership with the Kresh that benefits both our species. They risked everything to help the Corvin when no one else would act. They also started the largest rebellion in galactic history, Zexstack pointed out. 'Cause we gave them no choice, said Council Speaker Vilman, shocking everyone in the chamber. I have spent months reviewing the evidence that the rebellion uncovered. The council was corrupt. We lost our way and forgot our purpose. The admission from the former council leader changed the atmosphere in the chamber. If Vilman could accept the need for change, perhaps compromise was possible. The voting process took 3 days. Each species had to decide not just whether to accept a proposal, but whether they trusted humans enough to give them such an important role in galactic governance. The debate revealed deep divisions, but also unexpected alliances. The Corvin, grateful for human intervention during their plague crisis, voted to support the proposal. The Kresh and Nethmer, whose partnership had brought both species prosperity, also voted yes. Younger species, those who had been excluded from power under the old system, saw opportunity in the human proposal. Older species, comfortable with the traditional order, were more reluctant to change. The deciding moment came when Battle Commander Korthok of the Corvin made an unexpected speech. The humans broke their own rules to save my people, he said. They risked their standing in this community because they could not watch us die. That is the kind of ally we need. That is the kind of leader we should follow. When the final votes were counted, the new Galactic Assembly was approved by a narrow margin. 25 species voted in favor, 20 voted against, and 2 abstained. The transformation that followed was remarkable. The new government structure prevented the concentration of power that had corrupted the old council. The transparency requirements meant that all species could see how decisions were being made. Most importantly, human mediation corps became the conscience of the galaxy. When the Zephyrian species faced economic collapse, human mediators worked with creditor species to create fair repayment plans. When territorial disputes arose between the crystalline collective and the gas giant dwellers, human negotiators found solutions that satisfied both sides. But humans also maintained their role as rebels and critics. When the new assembly tried to pass laws that would have restricted free speech, human representatives organized opposition that defeated the proposal. When some species attempted to recreate the old power structures, human investigators exposed their efforts. 5 years after the rebellion ended, Admiral Kim Day stood on the bridge of the Joint Fleet flagship Harmony. Through the viewport, he could see ships from dozens of species working together on a massive construction project. They were building a new type of space station, one designed by humans but built with the best technology from every member species. Admiral, we are receiving a distress call from the Outer Rim, reported Communications Officer Park Min. Unknown raiders are attacking civilian ships. Scramble the response fleet, Kim Day ordered. All species, all ships, go together. As the joint fleet moved toward the crisis, Kim Day reflected on how much had changed. Human ships flew alongside former enemies. Species that had fought for centuries now worked as partners. The galaxy was not perfect, but it was better. The human mediation corps had proven that humans could indeed be both the best and worst allies. Best because they genuinely cared about justice and fairness for all species. Worst because they would fight against anyone, even their closest friends, when principles were at stake. The new assembly's motto, suggested by Dr. Park Min, had become the foundation of galactic civilization, united in diversity, strengthened by dissent. It was a philosophy that acknowledged an important truth. Real allies must sometimes oppose each other in service of higher ideals. The galaxy had learned that lesson through conflict and compromise. As the fleet approached the crisis zone, Kim Day smiled. The galaxy was in good hands, even if those hands belonged to the most unpredictable species ever to reach the stars.